So the rand is stronger, apparently trading at just under 17 rand to the dollar. But is it something you can be proud of as a South African? Let's get into it.
So according to an article by Tech Central, shortly after 2 p.m., the currency was trading at 16 rand and 78 cents, continuing a firming trend that started in April. According to this article, the rand gained further ground on Monday, supported by higher gold prices as local investors look towards the year's last bit of economic data for clues on the health of South Africa's economy. The rand is now at its strongest level since January 2023. Through the past week, the rand was able to capitalize on weaker USD sentiment. Technically speaking, the rand could now test levels in 16.60s before the end of the year, which would play a significant role in reinforcing the virtuous cycle that has resulted in the rand appreciating as much as it has this year. Now, a lot of people may look at this and be optimistic about what's happening in the country and what this could mean for the inflation in the country and the average prices of basically the cost of living in the country. But a lot of people remember when the rand actually soared, when the rand used to hit 5, 6, 1 rand to the dollar. And I'm about to debunk this as well, because I honestly feel like this isn't something we can be happy about. Most people remember a time when the rand wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. And I just want to look at the hard facts, right? When the rand was truly strong, which government blew it? Yes. And what has the collapse of our currency actually cost South Africa? There's a massive misconception that the rand was strongest only under the apartheid government, as in that government was what's best for South Africa. Yes, I mean, before the 1980s, the rand was often stronger than the US dollar, right? But economic historians will tell you this was an artificial strength, propped up by a closed economy, severe capital controls, and a regime under heavy sanctions. It wasn't real-world sustainability. If we want to talk about genuine democratic economic strength, we need to look at the era between 2002 and 2008. This was under the ANC government led by President Thabo Mbeki, with Trevor Manuel as finance minister. According to economic data from that period, the rand rallied from historic lows in 2001 to trade frequently between 6 rand and 7 rand to the dollar by roughly 2005. 6 and 7 rand. Can you imagine how things must have been easier and cheaper back then?
But why though? There's two main reasons documented by economists at the time.
One, a massive global commodity supercycle. We had what the world needed, and most would argue that we still do, yet we still fail to take advantage. Two, strict fiscal discipline. The government ran budget surpluses. They paid down debt. Investors trusted that South Africa knew how to manage its checkbook.
So how did we go from 6 rand to the dollar to knocking on the door of nearly 20 rands?
The shift began post-2008, so intensifying during the Zuma administration and continuing through the initial Ramaphosa years. The reigning government failed on 3 critical fronts, documented by rating agencies and the Zondo Commission. First, the rise of state capture, the most devastating example, known as Nene Gate, when competent finance minister Nhlanhla Nene was fired for political reasons. Market data shows that rand crashed over 10% in roughly 48 hours, wiping billions of the economy. I actually have a screenshot of the article right here. It states here that a surprise departure of South Africa's finance minister has driven the country's currency to an all-time low. This is an article released in 2015, December 10th. Basically, the country's currency crashed and led to sharp falls in share prices of companies listed on the London Stock Exchange with a major presence in Africa's second largest economy. And okay, this was back then in 2015, but this just shows how vulnerable, if I could put it this way, how vulnerable the rand was back then and how it still could be. You know what I mean? Investors realized economic policy was now subject to political whims and not sound math.
Secondly, they failed to keep the lights on.
You cannot have a strong currency without a growing economy, and you cannot grow an economy in the dark. I mean, the 15-year failure to secure energy supply via Eskom strangled mining and manufacturing, the very things that bring foreign currency into the country. And third, they stopped balancing the books. our debt to GDP ratio ballooned. I mean, rating agencies like Moody's and S&P downgraded us to junk status, meaning it costs us much more just to borrow money to keep the country running.
This decade of economic mismanagement is the reason why the political landscape had to shift in 2024.
The electorate realized that the government party could not fix the economy it broke alone. The loss of their majority forced the creation of the GNU, the Government of National Unity. The markets reacted positively to this, not because they love coalitions, but because it introduced checks and balances. The hope was that no single party could ever pull a Nene gate again without consequences. That slight return of trust is part of why we are seeing the recovery today in late 2025.
But let's not celebrate too quickly.
The failure of the last decade has had devastating consequences for the poor. I mean, when the rand is weak, South Africa imports inflation. We import most of our oil. When the rand crashes, the prices of petrol soars. When petrol soars, the transport cost for every loaf of bread, every vegetable, and every taxi ride goes up. Not to mention Bolt. The average poor South African has seen their meager income eating away, not by luxury purchases, but just by trying to survive. The weak currency made being poor incredibly expensive. So yes, the rand at 16 rand and 78 cents. How do you even say that? Late 2025 is better than 19 rand.
But what do you think though? Will South Africa ever reach those glory days? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and hit the subscribe button. And as always, till next time.